What is happening, gamers? It is The Honest Gamer here with Quantic Media, and today I'm bringing you episode 2 of the history of Final Fantasy. And during this episode in the series, I will cover Final Fantasy 3 through to 5. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into it. In 1990, Square released the third Final Fantasy game again for the NES, and was the first numbered game to feature the job change system, but more on that later. Originally it was set for another Water Swan Color remake as it had done before, but this was cancelled, and instead the newly formed company Square Enix were divided between a re-release for either the PlayStation 2 or the Nintendo DS. Eventually they were convinced to redesign for the latter, which proved a positive move due to the handheld console's commercial success later on. The music was again scored by Nobuo Uematsu, and this time the reoccurring character Cid was seen at the start of the game, as a man whom, after you help his ill wife, upgrades your airship, allowing it to travel to previously restricted areas. The story was set around 4 orphans whom were drawn to the Crystals of Light. Once they visited the crystal, it granted them some of its power and instructed them to go forth and restore balance to the world. Unsure of its exact request, but sure it evidently meant something, the 4 go about informing their adoptive parents of their newfound mission and set off together. Their travels finally lead them to an Archmage Noah who is trying to harness the powers of the Crystal of Light to bring about chaos and disorder to the world. Our heroes fight their quest well, destroying a cloud of darkness which brings about balance to the world, having restored the crystals. Gameplay was very similar to the last 2 games, however this time Final Fantasy III reused the old but very popular experience leveling system again. In addition, a job system was used, allowing for any character to play as any class. Doing so would then unlock the use of additional weapons, armour, accessories and magical spells, with the character becoming more proficient with them as time went on. Switching professions could be done by using capacity points, which were gained the same as Gil after having won a battle. Unfortunately, due to Square's preoccupation with the newly developed Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which was being developed in the same year, it didn't allow for funds to translate the game into an English version, which was the main reason why it wasn't seen outside of Japan for quite some time. A final improvement was the use of an additional vehicle, the submarine, so the player could explore underwater. It would also feature an airship which offered the player shops and a place to rest. The version for the NES was seen as being very similar to other RPGs of the time, being very difficult, which required the player to do a lot of grinding before taking on certain bosses. Copies flew off the shelves, and overall as of 2003 it has sold 1.4 million copies in Japan alone. The remake for the DS was financially a sound decision, selling close to 1 million copies in Japan. To sum up, it was a commercial success, with both the original and the remake selling well. This gave Square once again the confidence to continue the series into new consoles, with better laid out storylines, more intense combat situations, effects and everything else we have come to love. The 4th game in the series was fully developed in 1991 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and just like the others went on to feature various remakes for other consoles, including an enhanced remake for the DS in 2007. The game is still fairly known as being the second to the rest of the world, as it wasn't initially released outside of Japan. It would feature many new improvements over the others, such as including 5 characters in your party for the first time, the active time battle counter or ATB, and new graphics, but more on those later. It followed the story of Dark Knight Cecil as he tried to prevent the sorcerer Golbez from seizing powerful crystals and destroying the world. Cecil, whom at the start of the game was a captain of the Red Wings, an elite air force unit of the Kingdom of Baron, until he questions the king's motives over an unprovoked attack on the helpless and is stripped of his rank. Alongside his childhood friend Kane, they travel under orders of the king to a small village called Mist. There they deliver a package that, unbeknownst to them, contained monsters which destroyed the village. A young girl then in anger summons an earthquake which separates the two. Cecil removes the young girl to an inn, and ultimately she joins the party after he defends her from soldiers of Baron. After a hell of a wild storyline unlike anything which has been seen previously in the role-playing game genre, it ends with Cecil and his party having defeated the enemy against massive odds, defending the Earth and being crowned king and queen with his love interest Rosa. Cid also makes his appearance as an airship engineer and longtime friend of the main character, who helps the party and at one stage even joins them in battle. This time the 4th game had the ATB system, which meant that time ran continuously alongside the battle, dictating which side could commence an attack. In this game, and future ones, timers could be altered with the use of magic and various items, which was highly necessary as time would continue even as you picked your next move. It was this system that was seen as being a true revolutionary way to keep battle exciting. Improvement was made in the field of character development, having them drive the storyline to new depths. And developers wrote an amazing story with love, betrayal and sadness for non-playing characters who would witness a terrible event, become injured or die, further giving the player the feel of truly being involved in what was happening, making for a more realistic experience. Finally, the job system was scrapped and a new one was used, where every character had a class that they couldn't deviate from but would get better at as time went on. And developers used the SNES's improved system to design the game with better graphics, improving various aspects such as the use of vehicles looking more realistic, with the player being able to use a hovercraft to navigate the desert sands and a ship called the Lunar Whale, which could be used to explore the moon later on. To make this game, a new lead designer named Takashi took up the mantle as his first project being fully employed, and together with a group of 13 others created the game in roughly 1 year. Returning to agonizing work hours was Nobuo Uematsu, who ended up making a critically acclaimed soundtrack once again. Reviewers hailed the game as being one of the greatest RPGs ever worked on, praising its innovative storytelling and many elements that were so popular that they would go on to be used over and over again in future games, both inside and out of Square Enix games. The only downside being that the original had a poor English translation. But with vast amounts being sold, Square Enix was just starting to gear up their series and prove that they had what it took to move development to a newer generation of console. Final Fantasy V hit the shelves in 1992 again for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and was later re-released under the name Final Fantasy Anthology for the PlayStation. It was known as having revived the job system last seen in the third game, but with new additions to make it more popular, as the player could now spend ability points gained from beating your enemies in battle to gain newer abilities. The ATB system was also used again to great effect, and Sid made his ever popular appearance alongside his grandson Mid, as the two helped Bartz in modifying his airship. Also returning was the lovable Chocobo, whom was Bart's faithful companion, and for the first time in the series the Moogle was seen. The story saw you playing as the young traveller Bartz, as he went off on a mission meeting new friends who would join the party and the quest to stop an evil sorcerer from using his power to destroy the world's 4 crystals that control the elements. Through the quest, however, they failed to protect all of the crystals and the evil is released, but eventually defeated. It was also for the first time that players could watch on as different endings played depending on how many party members survived the final battle. Mr. Sakaguchi also returned as director for the project and is noted as having commented on it as being his favourite game in the series prior to Final Fantasy IX. Also returning to create yet another amazing soundtrack was Nobuo Uematsu, who wrote 56 tracks. One of the biggest improvements was the heavier use of Mode 7, a graphics mode used by the SNES, allowing for a more realistic effect, such as running inside the airship which appeared to move the Earth on its axis. The game was mostly well received. Reviewers praised the job system and how it allowed different classes to combine their abilities, but fans were angered by the continuous cancellation of projects to translate the game to English. After several failed attempts, Final Fantasy V became one of the first games to have a full fan-base translation. Reviewers also spoke of the game having outdated graphics. However, due to the franchise's past success, it was rumoured that the release of the game was so big that Japanese authorities had asked Square to not release the game during school days, as it would cause children to skip lessons to wait in line to buy it, proving just how popular the series had become. Okay gamers, for now, that's all from me. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter and Facebook to stay up to date with all my new videos and upcoming releases. And as always, it is the Honest Gamer here with Quantic Media, and happy gaming.